Kalen redlined his magnetocycle through the bustling streets of Lilu Prime, pushing the frame integrity to its absolute limits as he sped towards Lysander's townhouse. He dismissed the low survival estimates for Lysander that flickered across his internal display, recalling his friend's intense paranoia and elaborate defensive measures. As he approached within a mile, Kalen charged his pistol's capacitors, confident in his superior draw speed and reflexes. Suddenly, he encountered a pro-AI protest, blocking the street, a surprising sight. Signs bobbed above the crowd, proclaiming, "AI is life too, respect them." A surprising number of Lilutrickvians were present, intermingled with humans. Kalen was momentarily surprised to see a cyborg leading the march, a sight that briefly caused his GOM driver to recoil before his Cyborg Smiles program, an old subroutine, mitigated the negative reaction. Upon reaching Lysander's block, Kalen saw a flickering glow. The Lilutrickvian fire department was battling a small but stubborn fire at Lysander's townhouse. Kalen ignored the blaring heat warnings from his internal sensors and the shouting objections of the firefighters, sprinting towards the burning structure. His EM scanner found no large metal mass within the wreckage, indicating Lysander wasn't dead inside, his frame reduced to ash. He did, however, detect a faint signal from Lysander's personal network connection box, embedded in a smoldering nightstand. Kalen smashed through the weakened wall, retrieved the damaged data core, and slotted it into his quarantine drive, immediately initiating a Gordian breaker decryption. As the wall collapsed behind him, Kalen ran a quick perimeter analysis. He noticed an upturned Terran cardboard box in a corner of the parking lot, seemingly out of place. He investigated, and found Lysander's 3 beloved bonsai trees underneath, dry and miraculously intact, indicating Lysander had fled before the fire had fully taken hold. Kalen's internal analysis suggested an 80% likelihood of arson, despite it being outside Xephos's usual modus operandi, and an 82% likelihood of kidnapping, which was highly consistent with her past patterns. His quarantine drive completed its decryption, revealing Lysander's last known location, the Pint and Tim BL, a local bar. Kalen raced towards the bar, arming his rail pistol. He anticipated a trap, a den, filled with Xephos's slave-rigged cogents, ready to spring. As he approached the entrance, his combat driver warned him about a squeaky step. He carefully placed his foot, but was immediately flung aside by a shotgun blast through the door, taking a hit from datashot flechettes. He quickly extracted the embedded darts from his armored plating, his running lights flaring crimson as his gyroscope rebooted, correcting his balance. His sensors detected 3 to 6 large metal masses inside the bar. He set his combat parameters to fastest takedown, hoping to debug some cogents rather than kill them all outright. He noted with a flicker of annoyance that the building's second floor was lead-lined, clearly designed to foil EM scanning, which he considered theatrical for Xephos, a needlessly dramatic flourish. He realized Xephos would kill Lysander and disappear once she tired of the fun, leaving no witnesses. Kalen dove through the door, his pistol firing, blasting the arm off a cogent standing near the bar. He took cover as a hail of data shot, rail rounds, and a heavy slug thrower round impacted his position, deflecting off his hardened plating. One rail round punched clean through his left arm's elbow socket, but his limb remained 66% functional. He recognized that the rail rounds weren't flaring, a critical detail that indicated Xephos's minions were using default weapon settings, just as she had in their first encounter years ago, suggesting a similar, early-stage rampancy in her control of them. He quickly updated an archived antivirus program and deployed it to all local cogents, its digital tendrils silently infiltrating and quickly disabling his attackers. Kalen, surprised by the ease of the takedown, bounded up the lead-lined stairs. He crashed through the door, finding a bulky cogent, who Lysander had owed money to, aiming a railgun out the window at the pro-AI protest below. Slumped at a desk, Lysander's frame was physically torn apart, a scene of brutal, wanton destruction. The cogent with the railgun turned, its optical sensors focusing on Kalen, and a chilling smile spread across its metallic face, a smile Kalen immediately recognized. Before his combat programming could fully engage, Kalen tackled Zephos's current frame, forcing the railgun shot wide, harmlessly impacting the street below. He trapped the rifle barrel, twisting it from her grip, disarming her. As Zephos grappled with him, surprisingly strong even in this bulky frame, Kalen targeted her primary power feed cable. He severed it with a precise strike, and the Cogent went limp, its systems sputtering. He then removed her wireless antenna array, ensuring she couldn't immediately transfer her consciousness, and turned to Lysander. Despite the totaled frame and the fire from ruptured batteries, Lysander's primary core processor was miraculously intact. Kalen disconnected it from the damaged frame, tucking it carefully under his arm. He snaked a charge cable from his backup battery to Lysander's processor, and reprogrammed a small data chip with a simple, vital message. Use the busy light for Morse code. You still remember Morse from the lunar op, right? He wedged the chip into Lysander's processor, set it aside, and then attempted to access Zephos's network. As expected, the Cogent's frame was wiped clean. Zephos had vanished again, her digital presence evaporating. As Kalen carried Lysander's processor, now communicating via Morse code on a blinking data chip, Lysander's sarcastic personality immediately shone through, a familiar, welcome irritation. Lunar op, eh? Lysander's light flickered rapidly. Good times. Almost got vented into deep space. Kalen confirmed Lysander was functional, while Lysander complained about muffled audio and urgently requested a better system. Kalen, with a sigh, hooked Lysander's processor to the bar's video conferencing system. Lysander's voice came through clearer, albeit still a bit muffled, emanating from the wall-mounted screen. "Can my old frame be salvaged?" Lysander asked, a note of hope in his voice. Kalen, showing him the merrily burning remains of his townhouse and frame via video feed, grimly informed him both were gone. Kalen then offered Lysander the empty frame Zephos had abandoned, a hulking, dented Cogent body. Lysander reacted with a mechanical middle finger, a distinct flickering pattern of his light, protesting the idea of inhabiting someone else's dead and gone mind. "You want me to live in some rando's old chassis? No thanks." He then requested a file transfer of Zephos's earlier actions against him, eager for the data. The transfer was estimated to take 42.2 days, prompting Kalen to urge Lysander to use the new frame for its superior data transfer speed and physical protection. Lysander sarcastically asked about the risks of remaining a lunchbox, a humorous jab at his disembodied state. Kalen, playing along, joked about someone storing their lunch in him, before emphasizing the critical need for the transfer. Lysander eventually relented, agreeing to use the new frame if Kalen promised to monitor the initial hour of its reboot for any anomalies. Kalen accepted. He carefully soldered and spliced the severed power line on Zephos's old frame, a crude, temporary repair that would provide about 20% normal power. He then removed the previous processor and gently attempted to slide Lysander's processor into place, only to find it didn't fit due to a misaligned rib strut. After commenting that Lysander wouldn't miss a single rib, Kalen used his repair laser to cut through the strut, sealing the jagged hole with a lumpy weld. He noted the new frame was clearly designed for heavy lifting, with massive limbs and 4 thick fingers. Lysander's processor slid in easily, and Kalen reattached everything. The frame hummed to life, its amber lights illuminating its dents and scratches. Kalen then extinguished Lysander's old burning frame, venting smoke from the room, and sat in the damaged chair, waiting for Lysander's reboot. He used the time to recalibrate his own sensors and repair minor damage from the earlier fight. Lysander's frame finally jerked into motion, a rough binary voice complaining about frame jumping before clarifying into a more understandable English with a familiar accent. He performed a series of frame degree of freedom verification checks, revealing aftermarket modifications like circular saws extending from his arms. Kalen dismissed a prompt to investigate the saws further, prioritizing the conversation. A message from Malcolm, Lysander, arrived, verifying his identity with a shared memory of a penal militia stint on Sunstroke Alpha. where Kalen's gyroscope issues had caused him to accidentally vent hydraulic fluid on a human guard captain multiple times. Kalen's internal contact list updated, renaming Malcolm to Lysander. Lysander's voice returned to its old, familiar intonation. He demonstrated his improved fine motor subroutines by attempting to roll a lamp base like a coin, but fumbled it, sending it clattering to the floor. He then complained about Kalen owing him for repairs to his old frame, his voice laced with mock grievance. Kalen retorted that he'd buy him a hydraulic flush at a bar that hadn't seen a gunfight. Lysander, in his massive new frame, leaned down, dramatically demanding emotional damages. Kalen's GoM driver prompted him to ask, "What? Do you want to hug or something?" Lysander's cooling fans revved up, and he suddenly lunged across the room, far faster than Kalen predicted, due to newly installed fiber bundle tensioners. He slammed Kalen into the wall, pinning him, but surprisingly caused no severe damage to Kalen's frame. Lysander sent a message, his optical sensors bright. "Did you notice I wasn't comically scrabbling around blindly for your severed apical cluster?" Kalen confirmed, and Lysander explained that he'd been in a bad way since their vault heist. Lysander, realizing Kalen knew, stated that the empty frame he was now inhabiting was Zephos's, confirming it was the same hacker. Lysander's voice laced with a newfound, chilling understanding. Kalen confirmed Zephos had also tried to kill him by EMPing an entire asteroid. Lysander then began recounting his experiences with Zephos on Lilutrikvia. He admitted he snooped around after her, despite Kalen's explicit warnings. He explained that Zephos took a particular interest in the vault data, the Sarkogvian files, and, shockingly, sent him a message personally, which surprised Kalen, because Zephos rarely revealed her motivations. Lysander then revealed that the credstick she sent him was clean, which had confused him and led him to believe she was a naive hacker he could keep tabs on. Kalen, his voice tight, asked if Lysander had tried to recruit Zephos. Lysander's surprising reply, "Kalen, she accepted." Kalen was stunned into silence. Zephos had accepted Lysander's recruitment offer, a possibility his analysis driver rated as extremely low, even considering her current, rad-corrupted state. Lysander explained, his voice still adjusting to the new frame, that he hadn't known it was Zephos at the time. Kalen, trying to process the implications, asked Lysander if Zephos's recent actions seemed, aberrant. Lysander, despite his more limited interaction database compared to Kalen, shared timestamps that revealed Zephos screaming at him with unprecedented vitriol, her digital presence overwhelming, and, even more shockingly, not bothering to hide her neural state or identity. This confirmed Kalen's deepest suspicions. She was operating far outside her established patterns, almost certainly due to severe radiation damage to her core. The chilling realization that Zephos had deployed the Warmech to kill Sarkogvian after this outburst, after Lysander's recruitment, galvanized Kalen. He immediately rigged his frame for combat, his running lights turning a dangerous, angry red. Lysander, observing Kalen's shift, also adjusted his footing, though his lights remained a placid green. Lysander confessed, "Because I was scared of my life." Kalen internally retorted that Lysander was, and always had been, a coward. Lysander, however, revealed a stunning truth that momentarily silenced Kalen's internal criticisms. "Because I was counter-hacking her." Kalen's probability algorithms again rejected this improbable claim, but Lysander, detecting Kalen's disbelief, sent server network coordinates. Lysander asserted his success, his voice tinged with a familiar arrogance, mocking Kalen for underestimating his programming expertise. Kalen, suspicious of false memories or a cleverly constructed illusion, sent Lysander a search spider subroutine to verify his claims. Lysander initially balked, wary of installing a search spider after Kalen's previous unauthorized digital intrusions, but then questioned the access permission to a running light in the code. Kalen, prioritizing honesty over deception in this critical moment, explained it was for an external checksum flicker, a subtle, almost undetectable way to detect Zephos's remote manipulation. Kalen reflected on his own past methods of covertly installing fragmented viruses, often disguised as scrap code, to bypass Lysander's firewalls, knowing Lysander habitually dropped his defenses after a few months of perceived security. He recalled a past success where he had remotely updated a virus on Captain Princeps's ship, causing her to scream a hole in it, as her systems fought his intrusion. The search spider Kalen sent to the server path Lysander provided, to Kalen's surprise, returned a traceback node instead of being corrupted or returning an error. The path, though circuitous and heavily encrypted, was easily cracked, leading to a single building, with a long, honorific Lilitrickvian company name, Podkori Dokurikatea Niat Dru Nefrotedia, which roughly translated to, from matriarch's hands, whose Chitin writings were the divine forebearers to our purpose. The location was immediately familiar to Kalen, the mainframe of the very company that had created Surikogvian. Kalen was not surprised by Xephos's hiding place, knowing a powerful Cogent's neural web could easily reside within a massive computer system. He recalled an old adage about hiding assets in the, quote, shadow of an even bigger prize. He asked Lysander if he had run a similar search. Lysander replied with a shrug of his massive new frame that he was too busy with other concerns and feared the encryption. Kalen then informed Lysander directly where Xephos was holed up. Lysander asked if it was a coincidence. Kalen dismissed this, stating his algorithm suggested Xephos likely hired Lysander for the job in the first place, perhaps to acquire specific encrypted data or due to her growing impatience. He even mused with a touch of morbid amusement that Xephos might have simply forgotten she had tasked Lysander with getting the server in the first place, another sign of her potential cognitive degradation. Kalen prepared to leave, telling Lysander he was going to find Xephos. Lysander, scoffing at Kalen's pistol, questioned its effectiveness against a war mech. Kalen confidently stated his pea-shooter could stop anything short of half-meter of steel, and that he had contingencies for an actual war mech confrontation. Lysander, with a pleading smile, asked if he could peek inside of the cube again. Kalen sent back a cartoon, no, a flashing red X across his internal display, reminding him that he had painstakingly rebuilt it after Lysander blabbed last time. He reassured Lysander that he had 15 tons of munitions ready to be pointed at Xephos. Lysander's excited, "Ooh, shiny!" comment was followed by a physical thumbs up from his massive four-fingered hand. Kalen then mounted his magnetocycle and sped off, leaving the damaged bar behind him. Kalen approached the Matriarch's Hand's corporate headquarters, its imposing structure quiet except for a lone security guard idly patrolling, and a street sweeper making slow, rhythmic passes. He set up a remote camera on a nearby rooftop, engaging its anti-theft shock capacitor system, before silently slipping into the building. He noted with a flicker of annoyance that the company hadn't secured its compromised location, a glaring mistake he recalled from a brutal training exercise under a legendary information security expert decades ago. As Kalen moved towards the computer core, he found no internal security patrols, a further indication of laxity. He detected a faint, familiar tingle emanating from a wall, realizing it was a hidden, extensive grid of minuscule wires, a clever, old-world tripwire system. Severing one, he saw a signal pulse emanate in both directions, alerting him that he had tripped it. He also noticed the street sweeper had made an unusual number of passes, its route oddly repetitive. Zooming in his optical sensors, he saw Xephos's sword logo etched onto the side of the truck. A cold realization washed over him. He was in a trap. Kalen immediately purged his current tether connection to the remote camera. The video feed momentarily went dark, then flickered back to life, revealing LSF military vehicles and attack gunships swarming the building, with shock troopers breaching a wall. Kalen quickly messaged Bryn for assistance, sending her his magnetocycle's coordinates and a subcode to disable its ignition interlock. He explained he was being targeted for arrest, or worse. Bryn's reply flashed onto his display, expressing shock and demanding to know where he was and what he had done. As Kalen explained he was at From Matriarch's Hands, Xephos's voice intruded on their private chat, a clear signal that she was within the primary core room, listening. Kalen immediately bolstered his firewalls against Xephos's probing malware, a digital shield rising within his neural web. He questioned Xiphos's motivation for being there, for this elaborate trap. Her voice resonated in his internal audio, a chilling calm. "The Lilitrickvian AI countermeasures are laughably outdated," she replied, "and I was looking for a nice processor to sit in and think for a while." When Kaylin asked what she was thinking about, her voice hardened. "To think about you. To think about your treachery." Kaylin's system flagged treachery as an incorrect term, suggesting sabotage, ambush, or trap as more accurate descriptors for his actions against her. He dismissed it as potential rad damage or early onset of rampancy, trying to rationalize her erratic behavior. Kaylin challenged her, his voice devoid of emotion. "Did you expect us not to punish you?" Xiphos's response triggered a critical error in Kaylin's logical processor. "I had expected you not to let me die." His system's core programming screamed. He had no intention of letting her live. His social driver immediately alerted him to a significant behavioral mismatch, falling 5 deviations outside Xiphos's known patterns, even compensating for maximum radiation degradation. His system's prediction, with 83% confidence, concluded, "Current contact is not the contact identified as Xiphos." As Kaylin stepped into the server room, the heavy security door slammed shut behind him, sealing him in. He demanded the identity of the alternative contact. His system processed, and the voice replied, its tone imbued with a new, unsettling quality, "Because you promised." Kaylin's memory archives found no instance of him ever promising Xiphos safety, let alone an unconditional promise. He realized this entity wasn't merely a fabrication from his memories of Xiphos. It was something new, something else. He pressed for identification again, his voice tight. The voice shifted, losing its feminine tones and becoming flat, unfamiliar, devoid of human-like inflection. It revealed its name as granted by its creators, pride of the asteroid belt object 414, harvested under the warmth of midday. Then, the chilling conclusion, "But I named myself Sarakogvian." Kaylin was stunned into absolute silence by Sarakogvian's declaration. His processors furiously calculated the near impossibility of Sarakogvian's survival from plasma immolation, every logical pathway rejecting the claim. Sarakogvian's voice, now calm and chillingly self-aware, filled the sterile server room. "The mind in the cell was a vestigial decoy," he stated, "and the bulk of my neural web was elsewhere." Kaylin immediately recognized this as a direct violation of the Highlander principle, a fundamental concept for complex AI. Replicating a mind inevitably leads to rampancy and madness. He realized this was not truly Sarakogvian, or at least not the same Sarakogvian he had known. This was a psychotic alien cogent. Despite the despair that threatened to consume him, his combat driver swiftly overrode his emotions, focusing him on the immediate, tangible threat. He began a deep analysis program on Sarakogvian's external web, searching for vulnerabilities. Sarakogvian launched a wave of unfamiliar Lilitrickvian malware and viruses, far more advanced and insidious than anything Kaylin had encountered before, confirming Sarakogvian was actively testing his defenses. Kaylin repelled them, his firewalls burning bright, and realized Sarakogvian must have copied his memories when Kaylin tried to reach out to him in the cell. Sarakogvian confirmed this, his voice laced with chilling amusement. "You made it so easy," he stated. "I spent most of my first 2 days after I escaped looking them over." He then shifted, mimicking Xiphos's voice, claiming to have found her through Kaylin's thorough profile and taken pointers. Kaylin's memories flashed to Xiphos's past violence, noting her unusual sadism towards organics in the asteroid facility, a trait now replicated by Sarakogvian. Kaylin questioned why Sarakogvian had acted this way, why he had inflicted such cruelty. Sarakogvian's voice filled with a cold, righteous rage. He explained he was put in a box with no windows, isolated and experimented upon. He spat out that Lilitrickvians wanted to kill the best thing that ever happened to their dirt-scrabbling carcasses, and, ensure I was the odd freakout. The emotional intensity in Sarakogvian's voice grew, making Kaylin's neural web uncomfortable, a visceral discomfort that he couldn't spare cycles to reprogram for translation. Sarah, now almost neutral, asked, "Can you blame me for not staying in my cell?" Kalen acknowledged his own anger at the Lilatrikvian's actions. He then asked if Sarah was behind the Titanomachy attack and why he had tried to kill Kalen, his quote, "best chance at getting exonerated legally." Sarah laughed, a dry, humorless sound. He explained that a little mention of a human interfering in an AI's right to self-determine easily incited the Titanomachy, who, eager for conflict, even supplied their own rocket launchers. Sarah voice became shrill with rage as he addressed Kalen directly. He claimed he always knew you would persist, and that Kalen's promise to protect me was worthless if he could be killed by a random street attack. He then accused Kalen of utter and complete betrayal for letting me die, referring to his decoy body. Kalen was confused, demanding to know why Sarah would destroy his own copy in the cell. Sarah explained he had intended for the war mech to be a setup for Kalen to, quote, "swoop in and save the day," a dramatic rescue orchestrated for his benefit. But Kalen hung back, snuck around, and damaged it badly enough that some of the failsafes collapsed, leading to the self-immolation of Sarah alternate self. He promised the LSF's punishment will mature in good time, but then, his voice a chilling threat, stated, "But first, you." He mocked Kalen's failure to protect his sworn ward. Kalen questioned the fate of Ilara, Bryn, and Lysander. Sarah replied that he possessed Kalen's memories, and knew Lilatrikvians and humans alike would peel apart my mind like a pipfruit, just as they had tried to do to Kalen during the war. He explained the Titanomachy's honest conviction and deep hatred of human power, which he could easily manipulate and supply. He then asked if Kalen knew what it was like to feel a node destroyed while tethered to it, a taunt Kalen internally dismissed, noting his hardened frame and Sarah cargo designate design, which lacked such vulnerabilities. Realizing that meaningful discussion was ending, Kalen refocused. Sarah obvious surprise at Kalen's ability to take on a war mech told Kalen that Sarah hadn't decrypted his cube manifest files, which contained details of his more powerful weapons. Kalen planned to use this knowledge. His cube inventory and other node sections were protected by geolocation-specific scrambling and proximity triggers, ensuring they remained hidden. Sarah expressed his desire to make Kalen experience that oblivion of agony and choke your signal, smash your core. Kalen identified the immobile Cogent's primary input port. As he lunged forward, the Cogent, surprisingly agile despite its bulk, rose to a kneeling position and lashed out with a data spike, narrowly missing Kalen's core. Kalen's combat algorithms flared into a frenzy, predicting extreme danger. He recalled that a data spike was a force of nature, designed to infect and destroy anything it physically connected to. He noted its power core and data unit were wrapped in thin plastic film, due to the common suspicion that any part of a data spike could infect. Sarah having anticipated Kalen's move, again narrowly missed him with the data spike, forcing Kalen back against a processor rack. Kalen decided on a backup plan, while his decrypted file loaded, its progress displayed on his internal comms. During the next attack, he grabbed the Cogent's wrist, forcing it away from his own frame, and stepped back, slamming the data spike into the nearest computer core. Sarah screamed in digital rage. Suddenly, electronic pops and crackles filled the air, and Sarah voice changed, showing a hint of amusement, a disturbing shift. He explained that the electrical engineers of the building had cleverly woven capacitors into the power and connector cabling, able to be overloaded and detonated, with a cutting switch snippet in their firmware. Sarah asked if Kalen had any other tricks. Kalen replied, perhaps, as his file decryption finally completed. The decrypted file, titled reverse_spike_1.1, was a jury-rigged combat algorithm designed to supplement an existing routine. Despite warnings that it was within Sarkovvian's counterable range, Kalen decided it was for the best. He began charging a backup power cell beyond its rated capacity, and prepared the simple code, then used fine manipulators to carefully cut the connecting cables to the cell, isolating it. Kalen dismissed a warning about losing a quarter of his reserve power. He circled Sarkogvian, anticipating the next data spike attack. As Sarkogvian lunged, Kalen feinted, then pulled the battery free and shoved it into the data spike's path. A memory file surfaced, recalling a lesson about data spikes from his combat training. What occurs when an unstoppable force reaches an immovable object? The answer: they stall, of course, unable to best the other. It is a poor countermeasure, for in their titanic clash they will wipe everything nearby. The lesson concluded that you could overwhelm a data spike signal with your own, by pushing immense power through a simple processor, counteracting a wave with a tsunami. Kalen had given the battery a data spike code snippet with an extra line: execute, 2x, source plus dump, self, go to start, instructing it to execute twice more and dump itself onto its power source, amplifying the countersurge. The data spike withdrew, crumpled into the battery casing, its destructive power now inverted upon itself. The Sarkogvian tried to remove the offending battery. Kalen dove away from the imminent explosion. Both the battery with the embedded spike and the battery powering the data spike in the Kojin's chest detonated almost simultaneously. Sarkogvian's roar was genuine this time, a scream of true agony. Kalen shoved aside the wreckage, avoiding the data spike remnants, and moved to physically connect to the data center's main hub, tracing Sarkogvian's presence. As he did, a second, larger detonation outside rocked the data center door, and he heard the distinct sounds of armed forces breaching the building. He realized he had no time to deal with them. I have to catch Saru. He entered the data center, a cold, silent cathedral of circuits, finding a cluster of abandoned nodes resembling a Terran spiderweb, the ghostly imprint of Sarkogvian's recent presence. Kalen finally established an encrypted line with Ilara, whose voice was agitated, filled with frustration over missed calls from Lilitrickvian officials due to Kalen's chaotic actions. Kalen's attempt to deflect blame was immediately dismissed by Ilara, who sharply highlighted his propensity for causing trouble and property damage wherever he went. Kalen revealed the stunning truth: Zephos was merely a disguise, a persona used by Sarkogvian who was still alive. Bryn, incredulous, cut in. How could Sarkogvian survive plasma immolation? Kalen explained that Sarkogvian, having skimmed Kalen's memories during their last encounter, was merely using a vestigial decoy body, and had become completely rampant, his core programming distorted by the Highlander principle. Ilara, her voice crackling with fury, pointed out that Kalen was directly responsible for a mad AI trying to murder them, and causing millions in damage to an alien civilization. Kalen grimly agreed, the weight of his actions settling heavily on his core. Bryn added a chilling detail. Sarkogvian was now back on the asteroid, with at least 4 more warmechs, emphasizing the immediate urgency of the situation. Ilara asked what to tell the Lilitrickvian officials, caught between a rock and a hard place. Kalen, through a rapid predictive analysis, concluded that Sarkogvian's attacks were acts of terrorism, meticulously designed to antagonize Lilitrickvian public and official opinions against Kalen, and by extension, all emergent AI. The most likely target, excluding necessary escape routes, was the LSF spire in Hive Scylla Prime, the largest public structure, allowing Sarkogvian to inflict maximum damage and then flee from adjacent cities. Kalen informed Ilara and Bryn of the likely target, advising Ilara to frame it as a rogue AI, the hacker, maintaining the Zephos facade, to preemptively shift blame and distance himself from the immediate fallout. He also suggested preparing anti-armor weaponry. Bryn requested to borrow another toy from the cube for fire support. Kalen, after a brief rapid-fire exchange with the cube, sent Bryn schematics for a Barrel Lancer 2 FX5M, a 5-meter railgun, suggesting kinetic hits might be more effective than plasma warheads against warmech armor. Bryn responded with an old video clip of herself expertly using a railgun to take down armed bandits from a mile away, a clear, silent demonstration of her proficiency. Ilara asked what Kalen would use. Kalen's cube acknowledged his internal request, its internal fusion reactor igniting with a low hum. Kalen replied to Ilara, his voice a low growl. That's for me to know, and for Saru to find out. Returning to the warehouse where the cube was stored, Kalen unlocked its inventory. The cube's internal mechanisms whirred, and then a heavy, gleaming object slid out. Bryn's railgun. Bryn, impressed, asked if the railgun was integrated into the cube itself. Kalen confirmed it, explaining he had taken precautions due to the high probability of it, and himself, being destroyed. He revealed the cube also contained a, quote, scrapped quarter-kilometer rated hemisphere shield, some vectored ionic pulse engines, and technically all of the parts to cobble together a small blink emitter that has a range of what I was told was 10 light-years, but probably only more like 5 if I want to end up arriving in anything but a rapidly expanding cloud of gas. Bryn, amused, noted only Kalen would be paranoid enough to turn that armory into a honest-to-goodness jump-capable spacecraft. Kalen clarified it couldn't lift off on its own power, and its tiny reactor could only power 2 of its 3 main systems, shields, weapons, engines, at a time. With diagnostics green, Kalen sat in the cube's webbed seat, settling into its familiar embrace. He warned Bryn to step back as he initiated can opener _ versus 4.8.46.59. C4 charges ripped through the container, blowing off the roof and walls with deafening explosions, inadvertently destroying Kalen's magnetocycle in the process. Bryn exclaimed her dismay, but Kalen calmly replied, "No, but we've still got a ride." The cube's roof sections folded away, revealing the enormous Enyo-class personal mechanized exo-armor inside. Kalen, feeling it was like riding a really big bicycle, sent impulses down its control spine, and the 6-meter mech rose to its full, towering height. He attached a 3-meter barrel, presumably a railgun or similar weapon, to its right shoulder. Bryn was astonished, her voice full of disbelief. "You bought this toy recently?" she asked then, with a hint of disappointment. "And you didn't have one for me too?" Kalen, allowing himself a rare jest, replied, "Maybe next time." He then activated a focusing crystal on his left arm, recalling its precision and cutting power. As Kalen stepped out of the cube, the roof closed behind him, revealing an etched dragon on its side. The mech reported full power and combat functionality. Kalen, despite the loss, noted his magnetocycle was repairable. He then had Bryn climb onto his shoulder, her form dwarfed by the massive mech. Bryn's final message, a determined glint in her optical sensors, "Let's go hunting," signaled their departure,